Welcome. In this video, I will be showcasing the Romeo and Juliet Love Oracle decks. This is from Van from Trekendou, from the My Destiny cards. In this Oracle deck, not only are we going to get a feel of the energy behind the images and also the storyline, but that's exactly what we're going to get. We're going to have an opportunity to become familiar with the plot of Romeo and Juliet. And through this beautiful story, we can tap into the intuition and already access the answers that we're seeking. So this set of cards is completely based on the original William Shakespeare with illustrations from the 16th to the 17th century painters. If you're not familiar with the story of Romeo and Juliet, Shakespeare creates a violent world in which two young people fall in love. And it is not simply that their families disapprove. The Montagues and the Capulets are engaged in a blood feud. And in this death-filled setting, the movement from love at first sight to the lovers' final union in death seems almost inevitable. And yet, this playset in an extraordinary world has become the quintessential story of young love, in part because of its exquisite language, and it is easy to respond as if it were still something relevant today, something all about lovers. So we start off with the synopsis in Act 1. A street fight breaks out between the Montagues and the Capulets, which is broken up by the ruler of Verona, Prince Escalus. He threatens the Montagues and Capulets with death if they fight again. The Act 1 continues on with a conversation with Capulet. Count Paris declares his wish to marry Juliet. Capulet invites him to a party that night. Capulet gives a servant to the guest list for the party and orders him off to issue invitations. The servant cannot read the list and asks for help from Romeo and Benvolio. When they find out that Rosalind, on whom Romeo dates, is invited to the party, they decide to go too. Lady Capulet informs Juliet of Paris's marriage proposal and praises him extravagantly. Juliet says that she has not even dreamed of marrying, but that she will consider Paris as a possible husband if her parents wish her to. Romeo and Benvolio approach the Capulets' party with their friend Mercutio and others, wearing the disguises customarily donned by the maskers. Romeo is anxious because of an ominous dream. Mercutio mocks him with a speech about a dream-giving queen of fairies. Capulet welcomes the disguised Romeo and his friends. Romeo, watching the dance, is caught by the beauty of Juliet. Overhearing Romeo ask about her, Tybalt recognizes his voice and is enraged at the intrusion. Romeo then meets Juliet, and they fall in love. Not until they are separated do they discover that they belong to enemy houses. We can see here in these cards that sense that we normally experience in that first love. Whether it is the words that are used here, the pain of unrequited love, or like here in Capulet, where we see that controlling and fatherly love. Also, the act itself of falling in love and that enchanting love that we all get captured. And here we see in Act 1, Scene 5, prodigious birth of love. It is, to me, the beautiful quotes of Shakespeare. So we could resonate the experience that initial love in its dawn of getting acquainted. In the next set of cards, we move into Act 2, where Romeo finds himself so in love with Juliet that he cannot leave her. He scales a wall and enters Capulet's garden. Meanwhile, Benvolio and Mercutio look for him in vain. From Capulet's garden, Romeo overhears Juliet express her love for him. When he answers her, they acknowledge their love and their desire to be married. Determined to marry Juliet, Romeo hurries to Friar Lawrence. The friar agrees to marry them, expressing the hope that the marriage may end the feud between their families. Mercutio and Benvolio meet the newly enthusiastic Romeo in the street. Romeo defeats Mercutio in a battle of wits. The nurse finds Romeo and he gives her a message for Juliet. Meet me at Friar Lawrence's cell this afternoon, and we will there be married. And Juliet awaits impatiently for the nurse to return. Her impatience grows when the nurse, having returned, is slow to deliver Romeo's message. Finally, Juliet learns that if she wants to marry Romeo, she need only to go to Friar Lawrence's cell that afternoon. Juliet meets Romeo at Friar Lawrence's cell. After expressing their mutual love, they exit with the friar to be married. In Act 2, the creator of this deck allows us to experience what's that next step when we're in that love phase, where we're overcoming obstacles, where we need to find that inner strength and independence to say, I love you, that courage that it takes to make that commitment from ourselves and to express that, and ultimately to end up in that goal of unifying marriage and really committing to that love forever, as we say, I do. The next set moves on to Act 3, where Mercutio and Benvolio encounter Tybalt on the street, and as soon as Romeo arrives, Tybalt tries to provoke him to fight. When Romeo refuses, Mercutio answers Tybalt's challenge. They duel, and Mercutio is fatally wounded. Romeo then avenges Mercutio's death by killing Tybalt in a duel. Benvolio tries to persuade the prince to excuse Romeo's slaying of Tybalt. However, the Capulets demand that Romeo pay with his life. The prince instead banishes Romeo from Verona, and Juliet longs for Romeo to come to her. The nurse arrives with the news that Romeo has killed Tybalt and has been banished. Juliet at first feels grief for the loss of her cousin Tybalt and verbally attacks Romeo, but then renounces these feelings and devotes herself to grief for Romeo's banishment. The nurse promises to bring Romeo to Juliet that night. Friar Lawrence tells Romeo that his punishment for killing Tybalt is banishment, not death. Romeo responds that death is preferable to banishment from Juliet. When the nurse enters and tells Romeo that Juliet is grief-stricken, Romeo attempts suicide. Friar Lawrence then says that Romeo may spend the night with Juliet and leave for exile in Mantua next morning. The friar promises that Balthazar will bring Romeo news of Verona and suggests that Romeo can expect in time that the prince may relent and allow him to return to Verona. Paris again approaches Capulet about marrying Juliet. Capulet, saying that Juliet will do as she is told, promises Paris that she will marry him in 3 days. Romeo and Juliet separate at the first light of day. Almost immediately, her mother comes to announce that Juliet must marry Paris. When Juliet refuses, her father becomes enraged and vows to put her out on the streets. The nurse recommends that Juliet forget the banished Romeo and regard Paris as a more desirable husband. Juliet is secretly outraged at the nurse's advice and decides to seek Friar Lawrence for help. We can see here again how the use of the imagery along with the words that is used here in Act 3 can help a reader doing a love reading really connect with some of the issues that do come up, such as the engagement or an interlude of a romantic night, that sexual encounter, or that sense of rejecting or resisting in love, or how about the betrayal that we might feel, not only of a loved one, but also of a friend and confidant. And sometimes in love, it is time to say goodbye. The next set is about Act 4, where Paris is talking with Friar Lawrence about the coming wedding. When Juliet arrives, after Paris leaves, she threatens suicide if Friar Lawrence cannot save her from marrying Paris. Friar Lawrence gives her a potion that will make her appear as if dead the morning of the wedding. He assures her that when she wakes in the vault, Romeo will be there to take her away. Capulet energetically directs preparations for the wedding. When Juliet returns from Friar Lawrence and pretends to have learned obedience, Capulet is so delighted that he moves the wedding up to the next day and goes off to tell Paris the new date. Juliet sends the nurse away for the night. After facing her terror at the prospect of awakening in her family's burial vault, Juliet drinks the potion that Friar Lawrence has given her. The Capulets and the nurse stay up all night to get ready for the wedding. Capulet, hearing Paris approach with musicians, orders the nurse to wake Juliet. The nurse finds Juliet in the death-like trance caused by the friar's potion and announces Juliet's death. Juliet's parents and Paris join the nurse in lamentation. Friar Lawrence interrupts them and begins to arrange Juliet's funeral. The scene closes with an exchange of wordplay between Capulet's servant, Peter, and Paris's musicians. Moving into Act 4, there's different dynamics that come in, and it seems very normal that these do happen in a relationship. Sometimes we need to pull away before we can make serious commitments, so there's that sense of solitude. Or we may be so confused that we might need to seek help, that we might be troubled about issues that may arise from the relationship, such as those hidden secrets and truths. We don't know everything about this other person. And sometimes there's also, maybe not as dramatic as poison, but definitely the thoughts that we begin to strategize about how we're going to move into the next step or phase, and ultimately having the determination and courage to make the decisions that we need to. In Act 5, Romeo's man Balthasar arrives in Mantua with news of Juliet's death. Romeo sends him to hire horses for their immediate return to Verona. Romeo then buys poison so that he can join Juliet in death in the Capulets' burial vault. Friar John enters, bringing with him the letter that he was to have delivered to Romeo. He tells why he was unable to deliver the letter. Friar Lawrence anxiously goes to the tomb to be there when Juliet comes out of her trance. Paris visits Juliet's tomb, and when Romeo arrives, challenges him. Romeo and Paris fight, and Paris is killed. Romeo, in the tomb, takes poison, dying as he kisses Juliet. As Friar Lawrence enters the tomb, Juliet awakes to find Romeo lying dead. Frightened by a noise, the friar flees the tomb. Juliet kills herself with Romeo's dagger. Alerted by Paris's page, the watch arrives and finds the bodies. When the prince, the Capulets, and Montague arrive, Friar Lawrence gives an account of the marriage of Romeo and Juliet. Their deaths lead Montague and Capulets to declare that the family's hostility is at an end. Okay, let's take this deck for a spin and ask a general question when it comes to love. So normally the question would sound like, what should I be expecting, or what should I know in regards to love in my life? So let's put this out as a collective question. What do you need to know in regards to love? You, the situation, what led up to this moment, what's hidden, and where is it heading? So it looks like in love, there is someone that is coming into play into your life. You might meet this person out at an event, out in the community, in a social gathering, and you will make that first contact. And as in Act 1, Shakespeare said, a fair assembly, whither should they come? We don't know, but obviously that's where you may meet this special someone. In context with that, be concerned that there might be someone that is trying to stop this relationship, and they may want to some way, through their imposition, control this outcome. And it says here, my child is yet a stranger in the world. Maybe they think that you can't see clearly and you can't make decisions for yourself. Okay, so let's see where this is coming from. So this is interesting, that two things may be coming into mind here. That you were in a previous relationship that kind of you felt that this other person was overbearing and was not in line with your values, was very possessive, and maybe was not very sincere, as we see this dagger here in the side. But in the hidden truths about this relationship, your whole thing is about seeking help and guidance, and talking things over with someone else has most likely led you to some sense that you need to move on, and that opportunity will be there to meet others. So this person here might have been a confidant, someone that's been guiding you and has been helping you. And where is it leading now? Where's all this leading? Oh, a romantic night. Definitely you and this new person may be actually hitting it off and may be involved. And so there's a lot of sexual energy. And we don't know yet how deep into the soul this relationship is, but definitely there's a lot of sexual tension and a lot of magnetism that's drawing you two together. Really interesting where this will go. And if you're interested in a consultation with me, please visit my website at www.fortuneforecast.com, and I have 20 and 40-minute sessions available. Pick which one is best for you. I will get an email and contact you to set up our best time together. Hopefully you've enjoyed this card review and this mini reading. Till we meet each other on the next video, be blessed.